Welcome back. I'm Melissa Harris Perry. It is one of the largest divorce judgments in U.S. history. Earlier this week, Ann Hamm, the ex-wife of Oklahoma oil man Harold Hamm, was awarded nearly $1 billion in cash and assets. The Oklahoman newspaper says the precise amount is more like $995 million, but you get the idea. We're talking about a $1 billion divorce here. Now, Ann Hamm will be one of the richest women in America. Still, she plans to appeal the judgment, seeking more money she feels she's entitled to. You see, that $1 billion is a mere fraction of her ex-husband's wealth. He is worth an estimated $13 billion, according to Forbes. That $13 billion figure is based on Hamm's ownership of 253 million shares of Continental Resources, Inc. He'll get to keep all that stock, but he does have to pay Ann $322.7 million by the end of the year. How Hamm made his billions was a focal point of the divorce trial. Was it expertise and skill, or more passive circumstances? A bit of plain old good luck. You see, according to Oklahoma state law, where this case played out, a spouse is entitled to money a partner earns through skill. This distinction left Hamm and his company trying to portray the CEO, a man recently named one of Time magazine's most 100 influential people in the world, as someone who stumbled into success, so that the judge in the case would limit the amount of marital capital to split between the two parties. It all gets at just how much one spouse is responsible for the success of the other. And it brings to mind this moment for me.
If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we have that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
You see, that was President Obama back on the campaign trail in 2012 explaining that no business succeeds in a vacuum isolated from the public services that provide the necessary support, allowing that business to engage with the rest of the world. But whether it's from the government in the form of infrastructure or education or customers, or in the case of the Hamms, a spouse who worked in the office and in the home, one simply doesn't succeed all alone. It's a constant question. How did you make yourself? And it is that question that makes the Hamms divorce proceedings more than just a Dallas soap opera style sensation. You see, Ann Hamm worked as an attorney at her husband's company during 2 decades of their 25-year marriage. She left in 2008 and helped to raise the couple's 2 children. How exactly does one determine what it is the value of making a home, or, you know, the economic value of pillow talk, of ego support, of childcare, of being the personal chef? Furthermore, how will that value be recognized? Joining me now, Salamishah Tillet, Associate Professor of English and Africana Studies at the University of Pennsylvania and co-founder of A Long Walk Home. Jamie Kilstein, co-host of Citizen Radio and author of the new book, Newsfail. Vikki Ziegler, who is celebrity divorce attorney and CEO of DivorceDating.com. And Kierna Mayo, who is Vice President of Digital Content for Ebony Magazine. Thank you all for being here. I want to start with the divorce attorney in this sense, because it does feel like that argument about you didn't build that by yourself. It took more than, you know, there is a kind of value of the other spouse that has to be accounted for in the division of marital assets. So that's part of what you do.
Oh, absolutely, all day long. The problem is there's no real formula, Melissa. Nobody can say I can quantify that I cooked every day for you, that I gave you emotional support. We had relations each week. So unfortunately, judges sit there as subjective individuals trying to apply the law and take the facts. It doesn't always work to somebody's advantage. And that's exactly why we're seeing Ann Hamm saying, almost $1 billion is not enough for me. I'm sorry, Judge, I am filing an appeal because I am worth more. The question becomes, does the appellate division do something differently? Does a 3-panel judge say, wait a second, we see it a little differently. Is this a passive asset, which means that all of your hard work necessarily affected the increase, not only Mr. Hamm's, or was it not his role? It was teamwork. It was some of the assets that were done before, the decision-making before they got married, so she's not entitled to a 50% structure of this company.
And, you know, I think it can be hard to feel a lot of angst for Sue Ann Hamm because she's going to have $1 billion sort of no matter what. But when you said, oh, it's hard to put a value on it, it actually meant, the kind of economic software did try to put a valuation on what a homemaker's real salary would be if we just accounted for all the $96,000 a year, right, for an ordinary sort of person living their life as a homemaker. And the reason I wanted to talk about it was certainly her $1 billion, but less that than this model that is gold digger, and that if a woman is married to a wealthy man or a man who's even just wealthier than her, she's necessarily a gold digger, as opposed to she is part of the mine who is actually creating the gold.
Listen, my girlfriends and I, we joke that we all need a wife. Who doesn't need a wife in life to succeed?
Yep.
I mean, listen, I'm nobody's Bible scholar, but I know that in the Bible it says a noble wife is worth more than rubies, right? So, which is to say, this is an ancient concept. You cannot quantify the value of support. I mean, support at home is really what is the underpinning. I think anyone who's been in a relationship, in a marriage, understands kind of inherently what the value is of that kind of connection, that kind of daily support. It's a kickstand for your life. So you don't become a billionaire by accident without this woman giving you 26 years of her life, 2 children. I mean, I think that there's no question that she's entitled to at least whatever the standard is for a woman.
All right, so on the one hand we have that. Then Salamishah, I want to trouble it a little bit with sort of the foundational feminist text, right? If we think of one of the Bibles of feminism being the second sex, and that idea that marriage is simply along a continuum of prostitution, that women, because they are unable to have the same economic standing in the world as men, have to trade their nurturing, their care, and their sex to men, because that's how our economic system is set up. And so marriage is inherently troubling because it becomes this. And so there's a way in which, on the one hand, we all want to hold on to the joy of companionate marriage, and then when it comes time for the marriage to break up, it starts sounding like that argument, or maybe not. So help me there.
I mean, I think both are true. I think the idea of heterosexual marriages being part of a patriarchal contract is true. I mean, that's the history of it, as you pointed out in your own way of pointing it out. But what I think is interesting about this particular case is 2 things. One, she did work for the company for 20 years. So imagine if the employees of his company actually sued him for, equal compensation to his own worth, right? That's a different kind of strategy. But she uses.
No, but I love that. I mean, I keep thinking that. I was like, yeah, well, if she helped to build it, what about all the other folks, right?
Yeah, so that's what the Obama kind of quote made me think of. But the other thing is, they didn't have a prenup agreement. And part of that was because of the fact that, maybe they didn't think about it, maybe they thought their marriage was going to last forever, or maybe because when they actually got married, his standing wasn't what it is, right? So he was like kind of a mid-level executive on the rise. And so I do think that there's no way to fully qualify or quantify what she's given to him. But over that time, and this is part of the idea about whether it was his skill or whether it was pure luck, over that time he made significant purchases, he grew economically, and she was part of that process, both intellectually and then socially and culturally. So I'm not one who ever thinks that, when it comes to these cases that these women shouldn't get anything. I think that it should probably be fair and equal. And if he really was concerned, imagine that his employees actually suing him for what they think they are doing.
Yeah, what they also contributed, Jamie.
I didn't think I had anything to say on this story, besides I hope she bankrupts every oil man.
Go get them all.
Yeah, when I first read it, I'm like, who do I hate more, an oil man or a wife of an oil man? I was like, an oil man, that's who.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, give her more money if she promises she can only invest it in solar. I don't know. And but I mean, it is true. Like, if I was single, I would be living in an alley with a sign that's like, we'll tell jokes for hugs and pizza. And I mean, God, a relationship, it's a lot. It's so much, even if she didn't work for the company. I was like, just those days where it doesn't matter how successful you are. Like, you go home and you're sad and you need someone to tell you to go in the next day. This guy seems like a sort of cartoonish Simpsons-esque oil man, so I'm glad he's losing all of his money, but yeah.
We're going to stay on this a little bit, and we're going to bring in someone who's been through her own divorces. We're going to bring in the Kim Kardashian picture that broke the internet, but I want to stay on this a little bit because we're going to talk about what kind of assets women have in the marketplace.